The world tells you to chase after your desires. Lust is everywhere, constantly pulling at your attention, promising moments of fleeting pleasure and satisfaction. But what if I told you that every time you give in, you're not only losing a piece of yourself, but also drifting farther away from the one thing that can truly fill the emptiness inside you? Lust isn't just a temptation, it's a trap, one that robs you of your connection with God. Resisting lust is not about punishment or deprivation. It's about reawakening a bond with the divine that has always been within you. It's a battle for your soul, your peace, your true purpose. In a world that celebrates indulgence, the true strength lies in the courage to say no to fleeting desires and yes to the eternal love that is waiting for you. This journey of resistance is not easy. It challenges your deepest desires, but it also leads to profound transformation. Every time you resist, you reconnect with God in ways you can't even begin to imagine. And in that connection, you'll find a peace and joy far greater than anything lust could ever offer. A battle of flesh and spirit, the war for the soul. The battle between flesh and spirit is one of the oldest and most profound struggles in human existence. It is a war that rages within every individual, one that defines not only who we are but also who we are becoming. At the core of this conflict lies a choice, to indulge in the fleeting pleasures of the flesh, or to surrender to the eternal guidance of the spirit. This is not a mere philosophical debate, it is the war for the soul itself. The flesh represents our primal desires, those urges and temptations that seek immediate satisfaction. It is the part of us that craves pleasure, comfort and escape, often at the expense of our long-term well-being and spiritual health. The flesh tells us to indulge in lust, to seek validation through materialism, and to prioritize short-term gratification over lasting peace. In a world that constantly encourages us to satisfy our appetites, the flesh becomes a powerful force, pulling us further away from our higher calling. On the other side, the spirit is what connects us to God. It is the divine spark within, the inner voice that guides us toward truth, purpose and lasting fulfillment. The spirit calls us to rise above our base desires and to live in alignment with God's will. It is through the spirit that we experience peace, joy and a deep sense of purpose. However, the spirit often faces an uphill battle. In the face of temptation, the spirit must fight against the gravitational pull of the flesh, which constantly seeks to drag us back into the chaos of sin and selfishness. The war for the soul is not one fought with physical weapons or on external battlefields. It is an internal struggle, fought in the quiet moments when temptation arises and we must decide whether to give in or stand firm. The flesh might promise satisfaction, but the spirit offers something far greater: eternal peace, divine connection, and fulfillment that transcends anything the world can provide. The challenge lies in the fact that the flesh doesn't always appear as a villain. It often masquerades as something innocent, even appealing. Lust, for example, might seem harmless, even pleasurable at first glance. Yet when we succumb to it, we find ourselves empty, disconnected, and spiritually weaker. Each indulgence in the flesh pulls us further from the divine, creating a sense of disillusionment and despair. But there is hope. Every battle won in the struggle against the flesh brings us closer to the spirit. Each moment of resistance strengthens our spiritual resolve, opening the door to a deeper connection with God. It is in these moments that we find clarity, purpose, and strength, qualities that can only be found when we choose the spirit over the flesh. In the end, the battle between flesh and spirit is one of ultimate significance. It is not just about resisting temptation or adhering to moral principles. It is about choosing who we are and what we stand for. The soul is not meant to be a passive bystander in this war. It is the very essence of who we are, and the choices we make in this battle determine our destiny. By resisting the desires of the flesh and embracing the guidance of the spirit, we reclaim our true selves and reconnect with the divine purpose that was always meant for us. To the illusion of lust, temporary fulfillment, eternal cost. Lust, in its most basic form, is an illusion, a fleeting spark that promises fulfillment but delivers nothing more than temporary pleasure. It's an illusion because it tricks us into believing that indulging in our desires brings us the satisfaction we seek. We live in a world that glorifies instant gratification, where every moment of pleasure feels like a quick fix to an inner void. But what's rarely discussed is the cost that comes with it, an eternal cost that erodes the soul, disconnecting us from the divine source of true fulfillment. Lust offers a quick high, a momentary rush, a temporary escape from the reality of our own emptiness or loneliness. Yet, like all illusions, It is built on a foundation that can never truly satisfy. The satisfaction it promises is shallow, momentary, and ultimately leaves us craving more. The cycle of indulgence and emptiness becomes self-perpetuating. We seek the next hit, always believing that this time the pleasure will last longer or feel more complete. But the truth is, it never does. Behind the temporary pleasure lies a deeper cost, the disconnection from God, and the spiritual emptiness that follows. Lust is not just a physical act, it's a spiritual one. Every time we give in to it, we are saying no to the deeper, more profound connection with the divine that we were created for. God designed us for something far more meaningful than momentary pleasure. He designed us for lasting joy, peace, and a connection that transcends the fleeting satisfaction of our earthly desires. Lust draws us away from that divine design, and the more we indulge, the further we drift from our true purpose. The most dangerous aspect of lust is its ability to mask the emptiness it leaves behind. For a time, the body may feel satisfied, but the soul is left aching. What starts as a desire for momentary pleasure transforms into a deeper longing for something real, something that lust can never provide. In seeking what is temporary, we forsake what is eternal. And once we've tasted the emptiness that follows indulgence, the cycle repeats. Lust continues to pull us in, offering empty promises that we're conditioned to believe. This is the illusion of lust. It makes you feel good in the moment, but it pulls you further away from the peace, love, and fulfillment that only God can provide. Lust gives you what you think you want, but it denies you what you truly need. It promises fulfillment, but leaves you hollow, always yearning for more, yet never finding satisfaction. The cost is not just spiritual, it's emotional and psychological. The more we engage in lustful behavior, the more we begin to believe that this is all life has to offer, that real connection, real love, real peace are out of reach. This false belief makes it even harder to reconnect with God. We become trapped in a cycle of seeking temporary fixes that only push us farther away from the deeper, eternal peace God promises. Resisting lust is not about denying yourself pleasure. It's about recognizing that true fulfillment, real peace, and everlasting joy are found in God alone. Lust will always offer you more of the same empty promises and temporary pleasure. But when you turn away from it, you make space for something far greater, the lasting, eternal fulfillment that comes only through reconnecting with your true purpose in God. The illusion may be strong, but the cost is eternal, and the reward of resisting it is immeasurable. C.S.LEWIS and the Power of Temptation, The Path to Self-Mastery. C.S.LEWIS, one of the most influential Christian thinkers of the 20th century, understood the power of temptation in a way that speaks deeply to our spiritual battles today. In his works, Lewis often explored the subtlety of temptation, how it sneaks into our lives, and how it challenges our ability to master ourselves. He argued that temptation isn't just an external force, it's also something within us, reflecting our deepest desires and weaknesses. For Lewis, temptation is not merely about physical indulgence, but about surrendering control over our lives to something that isn't God. In the Screwtape Letters, he provides a striking portrait of how demonic forces exploit human weaknesses, playing on our fears, pride, and selfish desires. The demons in the book are portrayed not as grotesque creatures, but as subtle manipulators, experts in luring us away from our divine purpose. They know exactly how to target our vulnerabilities, using lust, pride, anger, and vanity to push us farther from God's truth. In Mere Christianity, Lewis highlights that temptation is a universal human experience, part of the moral struggle we all face. He explains that to be human is to face constant temptation, but it is through resisting these urges that we find spiritual growth. The struggle itself is not a sign of weakness, but rather a testament to our ability to choose differently, to rise above the pull of the flesh. For Lewis, self-mastery isn't about perfection. It's about being able to recognize temptation for what it is and choosing to turn away from it. Self-mastery, according to Lewis, is not about suppressing desires, but about redirecting them toward their higher purpose. He believed that desires themselves are not inherently bad. It's how we channel them that matters. Lust, for example, in its proper context, can be a natural human desire. However, when unchecked, it becomes an overpowering force that leads us to self-destruction. Lewis suggests that resisting lust is not an act of self-punishment, but of self-liberation. By mastering our desires, we reconnect with our true, divinely intended self. The path to self-mastery, Lewis contends, requires the development of virtues like temperance, patience, and courage. These virtues are the tools that help us resist temptation. Temperance allows us to understand the difference between necessary desires and destructive cravings. Patience teaches us to wait for the deeper, more lasting rewards that come with spiritual growth, instead of seeking immediate, empty pleasures. Courage gives us the strength to say no to our weaker impulses, to stand firm against the pull of the world and its temptation. Lewis also stresses the importance of grace in this battle. He understood that human willpower alone is not enough to overcome temptation. It's only through God's grace that we are given the strength to resist. As we struggle against temptation, we rely not only on our own strength, but on God's power to transform us. In this sense, resisting lust and other temptations becomes an act of surrendering to God, allowing His grace to work within us. Through his writings, Lewis teaches us that the path to self-mastery is not about avoiding temptation altogether, but about recognizing it, resisting it, and redirecting our desires toward a higher, divine purpose. It is in the struggle, the battle between flesh and spirit, that we grow closer to God and ultimately find true freedom. The link is in the video description and pinned comment. Take control now. The sacred nature of the body, from prison to temple. The body is not just flesh and bone, it is a sacred vessel, a temple designed to house the divine spirit. Yet in a world obsessed with physical appearance, pleasure and indulgence, the true purpose of the body is often forgotten. Lust, in particular, reduces the body to a mere instrument of temporary satisfaction, leading to a distortion of its original holy design. But when we resist these impulses, we begin to reclaim the sanctity of the body and see it for what it truly is, a sacred temple, not a prison. Lust is a powerful force because it taps into our deepest desires. It offers an illusion of fulfillment, a brief escape from the complexities of life, but it never satisfies. Instead, it chains us to a cycle of shame, regret, and fleeting pleasure. Lust transforms the body from a sacred vessel into something trivial, an object to be used rather than honored. This mindset turns the body into a prison of temptation, a place where sin resides and purity is locked away. However, the moment we resist lust, we reclaim the body's sacredness. In every instance where we choose self-control, we are choosing to honor the body as God intended. The Bible teaches us that the body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. 1 Corinthians 6:19. This is not just a metaphor, it's a profound truth about our inherent dignity. Our bodies are not meant to be controlled by desires or reduced to a mere means of pleasure. Instead, they are meant to be the very place where God's presence dwells. When we recognize the body as a temple, we start treating it with reverence, guarding it against the forces that seek to defile it. Lust, when given into, defiles the body. But when we resist, we align ourselves with a higher purpose. Our bodies are meant to reflect God's holiness and glory, not to serve as tools for sin. The act of resisting lust is not a rejection of the body, but a rededication of it to God. It's an acknowledgement that the body has a greater purpose than fleeting pleasures. The transformation from seeing the body as a prison to viewing it as a temple begins with understanding its divine purpose. The body was created in God's image, and through purity and self-discipline, it becomes a reflection of that divine nature. Every moment of resistance against temptation strengthens the connection between body and spirit. Rather than allowing the body to be a tool for sin, we transform it into an instrument of worship, honor, and self-control. When we resist lust, we step into a new level of spiritual freedom. We no longer live in the prison of our desires, but in the liberation of self-mastery. The body, once chained by temptation, is now set free to fulfill its higher purpose. Through this process, we experience a deeper intimacy with God, as we honor Him through our choices and actions. In conclusion, the body is not a prison but a temple, and when we treat it as such, we honor the divine design that God has placed within us. Lust seeks to destroy that design, but through resistance, we elevate the body to its true purpose. Every act of self-control reaffirms our identity as God's creation, a living temple meant to reflect His holiness and grace. By seeing the body as a sacred vessel, we unlock its true potential, not just in resisting temptation, but in becoming vessels of divine purpose and love, breaking the cycle of instant gratification. The power of resistance, whether it's scrolling through social media for a quick emotional boost, or indulging in desires that offer fleeting satisfaction, we're conditioned to seek immediate reward. But in the process, we lose sight of the bigger picture, and more importantly, we disconnect from the deeper fulfillment that only spiritual growth and self-control can provide. Breaking the cycle of instant gratification is about reclaiming your power over your desires, rather than letting those desires control you. Every time you give in to immediate temptations, you're choosing something temporary over something permanent, something superficial over something profound. Lust in particular is a prime example of how this cycle ensnares the soul. It promises pleasure, but in the end it leaves you feeling empty, restless, and disconnected from your true self and from God. True strength is not in indulging in every fleeting desire that comes your way. It lies in resisting those urges. When you practice resistance, you're building a life that is focused on long-term fulfillment, rooted in discipline, and aligned with your higher purpose. Each time you say no to the immediate, you say yes to something greater. And that something greater is a deeper connection with yourself, with your values, and with God. Lust, like any other form of instant gratification, is seductive because it taps into our deepest desire. It promises relief, escape, and pleasure. But what it never tells you is that these fleeting moments of satisfaction are just that, fleeting. They don't last. They leave you wanting more, trapped in an endless cycle of temporary fixing. The more you give in, the more it strengthens the hold it has on you. It's like feeding a fire. The more fuel you throw on it, the bigger and more consuming it becomes. Breaking free from this cycle requires courage and intentionality. It's about learning to delay gratification, to say no when everything inside you screams yes. It's about recognizing that true fulfillment doesn't come from momentary pleasures, but from the peace and joy that come when you align your life with a higher purpose. When you resist the temptations of lust, you create space for deeper, more meaningful connections, first with yourself, then with others, and most importantly with God. The power of resistance is transformation. It is through resistance that you discover your true strength and ability to master your own desires. Each act of self-control is a victory, an affirmation that you are not a slave to your impulses, but the master of them. Over time, this practice rewires your brain, shifting your focus from instant gratification to lasting contentment. You begin to see the world differently, no longer driven by the need for immediate rewards, but guided by a sense of inner peace and purpose. Resisting lust is not an act of deprivation, it's an act of liberation. It frees you from the chains of instant pleasure and opens up the possibility of a deeper, more enduring connection with God. When you break the cycle of instant gratification, you are not just denying yourself temporary satisfaction, you are embracing a life filled with purpose, peace, and spiritual fulfillment. In the end, the power of resistance isn't about what you give up, it's about what you gain. A richer, more meaningful life. 6. The grace of redemption, forgiveness, growth, and reconnection. Redemption is more than just a theological concept. It's the lifeline that pulls us out of the deepest pits of our mistakes and failures. It's the bridge that connects the brokenness of our past with the promise of a renewed future. But redemption doesn't come without a process, one that involves forgiveness, growth, and the ultimate reconnection with God. This journey of transformation isn't linear. It's one that calls us to rise above our past and embrace the divine grace that's been freely offered to us. Forgiveness, the starting point. Forgiveness is the cornerstone of redemption. Without it, no healing can take place. But forgiveness isn't just about the grace God offers us, it's about the grace we extend to ourselves. In moments of weakness, when we fall into the temptation of lust or other desires, we might feel the weight of guilt and shame. These emotions can consume us, making us believe that we are unworthy of God's love and redemption. The first step in reconnecting with God is accepting the forgiveness that is already given. God's grace doesn't wait for us to be perfect. It meets us in our brokenness. His forgiveness is not conditional. It's unconditional, wrapped in love and mercy. The moment we choose to embrace that forgiveness, we open ourselves to a new possibility, a clean slate, growth, the path forward. Once forgiveness is embraced, growth begins. Redemption isn't just about being forgiven, it's about becoming the person God always intended for you to be. This growth comes through conscious effort, self-discipline, and the willingness to shed old patterns and desires that no longer serve us. It's the understanding that every mistake we've made is an opportunity to learn and evolve. When we resist temptation, whether it's lust, greed, anger, or pride, we are stepping into a process of transformation. Every time we say no to what drags us away from God, we are building a foundation of spiritual strength. This is the essence of growth, not perfection, but progress. It's learning to stand firm, even when the world tells us to fall. Growth happens when we choose faith over fear, self-control over instant gratification, and purity over indulgence. It's a daily commitment to becoming better, more aligned with God's purpose for our lives. Reconnection, restoring the divine relationship. The final piece of redemption is reconnection, restoring the intimate relationship with God that sin and temptation often sever. Lust and other temptations disconnect us from the divine source of our peace and joy. But the moment we embrace forgiveness and embark on the path of growth, we begin to rebuild that sacred connection. Reconnection with God is a process of realigning our hearts and minds with His will. It's not about striving for perfection, but about embracing His love and allowing it to transform us. Through prayer, meditation, and scripture, we find our way back to His presence. The more we resist the fleeting desires of the world, the more we are able to hear His voice, feel His love, and experience His peace. Ultimately, redemption is not just about the act of being forgiven. It's about the process of becoming who we were always meant to be. Through grace, we move from guilt to growth, from brokenness to wholeness, and from separation to reconnection with God. This is the divine promise of redemption, that no matter where we've been, there is always a path back, always a way forward, and always an invitation to embrace the grace of transformation. The warrior within, turning struggle into spiritual victory. Yet in the chaos of modern life, that warrior can often feel dormant, overshadowed by the noise of the world and the weight of personal struggles. When faced with temptations like lust, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, to believe that surrender is the only option. But the truth is, the struggle itself is a call to awaken the warrior within you. Lust, like any temptation, is not just a physical urge, but a spiritual attack. It aims to weaken your resolve, disconnect you from your purpose, and strip away the integrity of your soul. But each time you resist, you don't simply avoid a momentary pleasure, you build spiritual muscle. With every act of defiance against the flesh, you're asserting your authority over your desires and affirming your loyalty to the divine. This is where the warrior spirit begins to rise. Spiritual victory doesn't happen overnight. It's forged through consistent, deliberate actions, much like a soldier training for battle. When you face temptation, you're given an opportunity to strengthen your will, refine your character, and deepen your faith. The struggle is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of growth. It's in these moments of resistance that your true spiritual power is revealed. Every time you say no to fleeting desires, you say yes to something far greater: connection with God, peace, purpose, and fulfillment. But how do you turn this struggle into victory? It starts with understanding that resistance is a form of spiritual warfare. You are not merely fighting against lust or temptation, you are fighting for your soul. And this battle requires more than just willpower. It demands courage, faith, and clarity of purpose. The warrior within you must be awakened and trained to fight with conviction, using prayer, scripture, and self-discipline as your weapon. One of the most powerful tools in this spiritual battle is the understanding that each act of resistance is an act of trust in God's plan. It's acknowledging that God's way is higher than our desires, that His purpose for us is far greater than any momentary pleasure we could experience. In times of struggle, the warrior remembers that victory doesn't come from giving in, but from surrendering to the divine will. This surrender is not weakness. It is the strength of knowing that when you choose God over temptation, you align yourself with the Creator of the universe, who equips you with all you need to win the battle. The warrior within also understands the importance of self-compassion. There will be moments of failure, moments when you slip, when the struggle seems too great. But these moments are not defeat. They are opportunities for growth. The true warrior rises again after every fall, stronger and more determined. In fact, it's through failure that the warrior learns resilience, gaining the wisdom and strength to fight the next battle even more fiercely. Turning the struggle into spiritual victory is about reframing the battle. It's not about avoiding temptation for the sake of discipline alone, but recognizing that every resistance, every victory brings you closer to your true self and your higher calling. It's about understanding that in resisting lust, you're not just defeating a temptation, you are forging a path to divine purpose, inner peace, and a deeper connection with God. You are awakening the warrior within, transforming the struggle into a victory that transcends this life and leads to eternal glory. 8. A new beginning. Purity is the path to divine purpose and connection. Its purity isn't just about abstaining from the temptations of lust, It is about realigning your soul with God's greater purpose for your life. In a world that often promotes the pursuit of pleasure and instant gratification, purity stands as a powerful act of resistance. It is not a denial of desire, but a choice to channel that desire towards something infinitely more fulfilling, your divine connection with God. When you choose purity, you choose a new beginning. It is the conscious decision to rid yourself of distractions that distort your relationship with God. Lust, in all its forms, doesn't just affect your physical body. It deeply affects your spirit, clouding your vision and weakening your connection to the divine. Each time you resist the pull of lust, you create space for something greater. You shift your focus from transient pleasures to eternal truths. You replace self-indulgence with self-discipline, and in that discipline you find divine purpose. Purity is the foundation upon which a deeper connection with God is built. The world often tells you that satisfaction is found in giving in to desires, but true satisfaction lies in the discipline of resisting them. This resistance doesn't just strengthen your willpower, it refines your spirit. With every act of purity, you are refining your soul to better receive God's love, wisdom, and guidance. The more you resist lust, the more you open your heart to God's transformative power. As you walk this path, you will begin to notice the subtle ways in which your life shifts. Your thoughts become clearer, your actions more aligned with your divine purpose, and your heart begins to heal from the wounds caused by fleeting pleasures. You no longer seek fulfillment from external sources, but from the internal peace that comes from walking in harmony with God's will. This new beginning is not about perfection, it is about progress, a steady, intentional movement toward becoming the person God always intended you to be. Purity is also about reclaiming control over your own life. Lust seeks to dominate, to consume your thoughts, your time, and your energy. But purity empowers you to take back that control, to choose how you will live and what you will give your energy to. It is a revolutionary act in a world that encourages surrender to instant gratification. The more you choose purity, the more you step into your true identity, one not defined by fleeting desires but by the eternal love and purpose that God has for you. Through purity, you are not just resisting temptation, you are inviting divine transformation into your life. Each moment of purity is a step toward reconnection, a step toward walking in the fullness of God's plan. The peace you feel in moments of restraint is not just a temporary relief, it is a foretaste of the deeper joy and fulfillment that God promises to those who walk with Him. In choosing purity, you are choosing a path that leads to divine connection, a life aligned with your true purpose. It's a path that requires courage, discipline, and faith, but one that brings you closer to the peace and joy you seek, filling you with the divine presence that lust can never offer. This is your new beginning, one where purity paves the way for a life of purpose, clarity, and deep connection with God. As we've explored, resisting lust is not a simple act of avoidance. It is an intentional, life-altering decision to reconnect with God and realign your spirit with divine purpose. Lust, in all its deceptive allure, may seem enticing in the moment, but it can never offer the peace, joy, and fulfillment that come from living in alignment with God's will. Every time you choose purity, you choose a higher path, one that leads you away from temporary satisfaction and toward eternal connection. The path to freedom from lust isn't about willpower alone. It's about understanding the deep spiritual transformation that occurs when you make purity a central part of your life. The power to break free from the chains of lust lies not in resisting the temptation alone, but in actively embracing something far greater, a relationship with God that is unshakable, unbreakable, and filled with peace. If you're ready to take the next step in your journey of spiritual growth, I've created a resource that will help you unlock even deeper insights into this battle. My ebook, 7 Biblical Secrets to Destroy Lust Before It Destroys You, provides you with practical biblical strategies that will empower you to overcome temptation and live in true freedom. It's not just about resisting lust, it's about transforming your life, reconnecting with God, and walking in the fullness of your divine purpose. I encourage you to take action today. If you've found value in this message and are ready to start living a life free from the chains of lust, click the link in the description to grab your copy of my ebook. These biblical secrets will equip you with the tools you need to destroy lust before it destroys you, helping you embrace a future filled with spiritual clarity, purpose, and lasting joy. The time to take control of your life is now. Don't wait any longer. Your new beginning starts today.